Hello, all of you bold, brilliant, and beautiful, highly evolved souls. I'm Davina Shemaya, and today's topic is the gifted child. um, the more I work with children, the more I realize that many of the children I have cared for um, are actually gifted children. And I started doing some research on this, and the more and more I've thought about this, the more I think that I am and was the gifted child. Um, yeah, gifted children. Here are some of the characteristics. They're often very independent. They have excellent memories and don't need a lot of repetition with things. They're highly curious, um, and always seeking to learn and soak up new information. They have very good focus, and they might be extremely creative and be able to tell you very detailed things about a picture or something that they've made. And they're very aware of their surroundings. They're always noticing what's around them, what's happening. Um, they are probably kind of like the old soul type who seems like they're like an adult in a child's body. Um, they may have a high level of alertness and awareness, clever sense of humor. They might like to play alone. Um, and yeah, so what happens when you have a narcissistic parent and you are actually a gifted child? You're highly sensitive, you're highly empathetic, and you have been around this life many times. um, and so you automatically, when you come into this world, you already have a lot of kind of knowledge and awareness and sensitivity because you've kind of been around the block, you know? um, and your soul has lived many, many lives. So when we have a highly narcissistic parent, what happens is the narcissistic parent feels very threatened by this child, because this child shows them, magnifies their shame. So, for example, if their child is very lively, full of life, it magnifies for them how dull and lifeless that they feel in the core of themselves. Um, or if they're shaming their child for their creativity, it's because they feel deeply ashamed, um, that they have lost that creativity. If they shame their child for being too needy or too dependent, it's because they feel, again, really, at the core of themselves, deeply ashamed of their neediness or dependency on other people. Um, and on, right? If they are shaming their child for, um, being too sensitive or overreacting to something, they're kind of implying that their child is wimpy or weak, can't, not tough enough. And again, this is because of their own deep shame that they feel like, they perceive that they are that wimpy and that their emotions are not acceptable. And also, the narcissistic parent has no capacity to handle their child's emotions. So the only choice they have in that moment is to either, a healthy parent would look at themselves and go, oh, wow, I feel like a real schmuck here. I have no idea how to handle this situation right now. And they would maybe learn and find out and come back and do it differently next time. But a narcissistic parent will just simply shame the child. That's what they do. They just shame the child for whatever they, either can't deal with, or that they are feeling that deep shame within themselves. And yeah, I've seen this, of course, as a nanny. And one thing comes to mind right now is a mother who would always, like, kind of in a snide kind of way, go, oh, you're full of life today. it was always, I was struck that as a very strange kind of thing to say to your child. Like, of course they're full of life. They're joyful, exuberant most of the time. That's their natural state. And of course they have emotions. They go through the emotions and it flows through them and they're back to their energetic, exuberant state. So I could see the mother's jealousy in that, like that she was, at least that's what I was perceiving, is that she was jealous of the child's exuberance and and brilliance. You know, she was very shiny, you know, very um and so yeah, this what I'm just realized too is like the you know that our parents shamed us for these things that were our, you know, that actually were our brilliance and our gifts and our um you know um the magnificence of who we are, um because they felt that threatened, that they didn't want to look at themselves, look at their own shame. And yeah, I thought of some examples. For example, you know, like um implying that I felt like I was sometimes like felt like I was wimpy or weak because I had emotions, right? And so I put the opposite of those things. I thought, okay, really, I am brave and strong. It was, and I had to go along with my parents' view of myself in order to survive. Because if I fought or went against that, I would just end up with, of course, more shame. Like they would shame me more, blame me more abuse, right? So really the only choice you had was to go along with this view, this story of who you were that your parents created in order um to feel safe in themselves, right? um so yeah, like my dad said that I was not dynamic enough. And I thought, okay, wait a minute. Again, I wrote the opposite down. Opposite is I'm actually very lively, energetic, exuberant, and charismatic, I think. um, and you know, it feels even funny saying things like this because I'm probably still in a shame flashback. So I don't want to compliment myself. And it feels dangerous in a way to compliment myself. I realized lately that I can't even let those things in. Like, um, yeah, like I am brave, I am, you know, charismatic, or I am um exuberant, you know, because I needed to keep safe in my family. So showing my true awesome self was dangerous. So it's shame in a way like kept us safe. Um Kept, you know, like it's kind of like being small and unnoticeable so that, you know, you didn't get more beaten down. um and we kind of internalized that and sort of like was then, you know, in a way beating ourselves up. But it's also kind of like a, it's also a tape. I don't know how to look at that. But um so anyway, like my dad also called me like stubborn. And I realized really in this case, it's like, yes, I was very determined. I was a very determined, persistent little girl, I'm sure, who knew her needs, who knew what she wanted. And my dad would have just, you know, dismissed that as being stubborn, and a way also to dismiss my needs and do what he wanted instead. Um, my dad often implied that I was childish or dependent. Again, just, you know, that was his stuff. You know, that was how he felt about himself. Um, and really, I was likely very mature for a child and very independent, as I have seen from gifted children. They're often way beyond their years and can play independently at a young age. You know, I took care of a girl who wanted to put on her own pants. She was like 15 months old and she was determined to get her pants on by herself. And she would try and try again. And sometimes she would get frustrated, but most of the time she just was so persistent in doing that. And maybe all this has come about because of the girl that I'm taking care of now. again, I saw this dogged determination as she's 3 months, so she wanted to turn from her back to her tummy by herself. And she kept trying and trying. Every time I put her on her back, she would be trying to roll over. And, and finally this week she was able to do that, like just this amazing determination. And I think I'm working again with another highly evolved, gifted little being. I feel like I'm really blessed with the children that I care for. Couple other ones, my my father also implied that I was a failure in my life, that I wasn't successful, that I wasn't financially successful. And again, I think I've subconsciously kind of gone along with that because I didn't want to make him feel uncomfortable or ashamed. So often the scapegoat is protecting the narcissistic parent from feeling their own shame. I've noticed this in how I act around the parents that I work for, that I sometimes play a little dumb or act like I don't know things, like I don't want to look too smart because I might make you feel ashamed. Um, for example, like contracts, this new family that I'm working for wrote a very 3-line contract, and I was just like, oh no, that's not a contract. But I was too scared to show them and go, well, this is kind of what I want a contract to look like a 3-page formal employment contract. And I'm starting to break out of these patterns. And it takes time because there's always that other part of it, just like boundary setting is produces absolute can produce absolute terror. It can act because it was dangerous to do so in our family. It was also dangerous to show your shiny self. They would bat it down, like hammer it down. No, you can't be shiny, no, you can't be too excited, and no, you can't be too sad, and no, you can't be like that, and you can't be like that either. So it was a very narrow kind of what we could be to our parents would have been a very kind of limited, restricted kind of self that was acceptable. Yeah, and I've seen this too with how parents treat children, like, calm down, you're too hyper. But then when they're when they're calmer or they're sad, then they're too sad, and you should be cheerful, right? So it's like, yeah, with narcissistic parents, you cannot win. So our only choice was to live in this shameful small self to survive. And coming out of that again is difficult. And to me, the only way is, as always, I say, for me, it's just sitting with the very excruciating pain of feeling ashamed, feeling like, shame can come in has many faces. You can feel like you're not enough, like you're inadequate, like you're a loser, like you're a failure. Yeah, like you're not energetic enough or creative enough, or just that you're a terrible person, a bad person, you're wrong. Yeah, there's so many different kind of faces of the shame. So I often just try to name it. Like, I feel like a loser right now. I feel like I'm failing. I feel completely like just like a terrible, inadequate person. I just want to stick my head in a hole right now, you know. Um, and yeah, so it's when you name it, it starts to, what I notice is even if I just say I'm feeling ashamed, you'll start to get a little space from it. And the second step, what I did the other day was just to go, you know, I know this is so painful for you. So that even more validated that that was a feeling and not my state of being, that I'm not a shameful person. It's really just an emotion that was that I had, of course, because my parents shamed me, right? And so it's just now resurfacing so it can be healed and so it can release. And so I don't have that feeling, such a, such a deep feeling of shame. So I think this has been very long-winded, but I hope that this brings you some sort of healing, clarity, insight today. And I'm wishing you many, many blessings on your journey of healing and awakening. And I am Davina at Boldness Blooming. Thanks for watching.